Hello, and welcome to the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. Today we have Cody and Rob here.
How do?
Today we have a few different topics we're going to talk about. Hopefully Jordan will be joining us shortly, but until then you're going to have to deal with my duct tape production of our streaming system, so hopefully it all works. Today we're going to be talking about the Republicans storming the what is it, the skiff or whatever, the House
Yeah,
Republicans.
the Democrats were holding basically a start chamber in the skiff.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this case, this child custody case in Texas with the transgender child. And we're also going to talk about, we might talk about the ceasefire in Syria. Hopefully you know a little more about that than I do because I am not caught up. And then
I'm not very caught up. I've been on travel all week, so I'm just like, you know.
we might touch on that. Maybe I'll pull up an article on it. And then we're going to no, excuse me. We're going to talk. I wanted to have a general discussion between two different concepts just to see how that works, but the concepts I picked were diversity versus unity. We can talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
But let's start with the Republicans storming the, I don't know what you call this, the secret hidden room.
Let's just say it's a room in the basement. It's a skiff. It's not supposed to be used for what Nadler's using it for. It's not supposed to be used for a legal deposition of people. It's really supposed to be used for compartmentalized secret information. And I'm not entirely sure what the Democrats thought they were gonna be able to do with that other than just get out of sight. So when something's done in darkness, it usually isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, um, I know that there are Republicans on these committees, but they're still being held in secret, and the Democrats are selectively leaking certain things.
Yes. I'm not entirely sure which Republicans were on these committees. Did they list them?
They have one of them in this story. Um, let's see if I can find him. Somewhere in here. They name one of them. They're nobody I've ever heard of before, so not like
Yeah, but
anybody famous.
what district are they from?
So there's Chris Stewart. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee. Um, he's from Utah.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't know if how people understand how the government works, but these committees are basically appointed by whoever is the majority in the House.
Mm-hmm.
But they have members of both parties in them.
Yes.
But generally they have more members of the majority party than the minority party.
Yes. Well, that makes total sense because let's face it, it's done by proportionality. So the party in power is going to have more people, and they'll always have at least a majority of one.
Well, right, and then the party in power will also be the chairman of these committees, so they get to set the agenda and everything, which
Exactly.
they
And the
then
minority party is the deputy chair.
Yeah. So they get to decide basically what Congress talks about in the House. Maybe
Yes.
the Senate. I don't know how it all works exactly.
The
Civics classes
House,
sucked.
in the House, being in the minority, you have a lot less power than you do in the Senate.
Right. So the Republicans basically walked in. The articles that I've read, it's like Republicans storm um, deposition. Like they try to make it seem like they definitely have a bias, to them. Try to make it seem like the
Um,
Republicans were just doing something totally untoward, like something that's never been done before.
well, the reason why they did, well, they didn't. Nobody's ever done this before, but also nobody's ever been conducting a star chamber in a basement room. You understand? Repurposing it for the purpose of having you know, a, a platform from which to leak select information. It's crap. So, what Nadler is doing is also has never happened. So it's a reaction to something that's gone on before. And my God, why are it's like if Trump is as awful as Nadler makes him out, he'll get crushed in the election. You know what I'm saying? But he's not that
Right.
awful.
Well, the other part of that is that the the Democratic candidates aren't that good either. So
Um,
they're like,
I
well,
think that's an understatement. I think they're pretty damn awful, and I think that everybody who's in power in the leadership of the Democratic Party, the old hands, they know that their party has been hijacked least at the grassroots level by people who are a lot further to the left than the general election people. If you look at how far left the primary voters in the Democratic Party are, and then how far left the American public is, it's too big of a disparity. So I don't think any of the candidates who would win the primary are going to be able to withstand the onslaught of a general election.
well, yeah, I think the general the candidates that would probably do the best in a general are like the Biden, the centrist types.
Yes,
But
there are actually, like there are a couple of them up there who were like early on who I was like, well, you sound like, you know, honestly, you sound like a normal human being, and I could see you doing well. But those are the people who also never got a single applause for
right.
for anything they said, and they were just like, please shut up. Was you could tell there was no interest in them whatsoever.
Well,
You know,
the more I read and the more I study like U.S. history and politics and whatnot, it seems to me that the Democratic Party is truly like they are they are true to that word, Democrat, democracy, uh, but like a pure democracy, where simple majority decides everything. And so the Democrats, in my experience, sort of believe that when they get elected, if they have the majority, that means they get to do whatever they want. And that's not how the system's supposed to work exactly. It's
no, the system's not supposed to work that way at all. And the other part of it is that if you look at what goes on, it's like the Democrats back in the late 90s, early 2000s basically completely won the cultural war. Okay? And instead of saying, okay, that's great, now we're done with that, and the Republicans are going to have to deal with it because it showed, in a sense, it demonstrated their absolute hypocrisy on the issues. They didn't care about the issues. For them, the issue is a vehicle to election success. So what did they do? It went from gay marriage to now trans issues or gender. Let's get these kids and we're going to call what used to be a in the what is it? There's a I forget the name of it, but there's a listing of diseases out there it's a standardized disease list, and it used to be gender dysphoria was listed as a mental
Oh,
disorder.
the DSM or whatever.
The DSM, yes. DSM-4, it was a mental disorder. They changed it, like they updated the DSM-4 way faster. It was out of cycle. It was like they used to change it every 10, 20 years, and they hurried it up just so that they could get that one thing changed. And it kind of shows you how politics has even entered the medical industry, which to me is absolutely, I wouldn't call it hysterical. It's actually frightening, because
Disturbing.
you're talking about mental health of people. You're talking about some fraction of a percent of the U.S. population. It's less than 0.5%. It's less than 1/4%. That is, it's even smaller than that. That's going through this sort of crap, but they're glorifying it, and kids are susceptible to getting caught into it. And as a group, they suffer from a 40% suicide rate. 40% of the people who get gender dysphoria will attempt suicide, or will succeed in suicide. I forget which one it is. But so making this out to be some sort of good, it's incredibly reckless.
Yeah, and we can talk about that, the transgender stuff, with the next story too.
Yeah, I know, but
Um,
what it is, but what I'm saying is that's where it came from. It's a political spear point in order to continue making this a fight about culture, and it shows you the how what's the right word, cynical, how cynical the position is. It really doesn't matter what the issue is. There is no principled position. It's, will this position lead to electoral success?
yeah, and I find that when like the way it gets portrayed in the media and by the Democrats, which we all know
It's the
now
same
to be
thing.
the same thing, yeah, is that when the Democrats win the majority and then they start doing whatever the hell they want, um, they ignore the Republicans, and then the Republicans take like some of these actions. Like here in Oregon, they denied quorum by leaving the state to prevent a cap and trade bill from going through. Or like now in the House where they storm these secret hearings, like that's the last measure, that's the last thing that they can do is they can protest because they're the minority party. They don't have power, but the majority party just says, "Well, we're the majority and we don't have to listen to you. We get to just do whatever we want and you just have to sit there and take it." And it's like
The thing is,
that's not how it works though.
no, it's not. And what it is in a lot of ways, they're laying the groundwork for, there used to be a sense of congeniality in the House and in the Senate. And it was a sense of we're all Americans first. And it's these sorts of tactics by the Nadlers in the party and the shifts, who are some of the most partisan members of their party. I don't think the majority of Democrats are that over the top, but they become the face of the party, and their treatment of their fellow congressmen will break we are really becoming a house divided. This is really stupid, because it really does cause hard feeling.
Yeah, it's a bummer, you know. um, so when the Republicans stormed into this, I mean, I hate using that phrase because really they just walked through a door and hung out. Like when I hear the word stormed into somewhere, I'm thinking like they ran in there and like knocked shit over and was like punching people. Like they stormed in, you know, started shooting. Uh
Wait, what was this?
no, that's just my impression when I hear the word stormed in.
Oh,
Like if you
yeah,
think
no. The
about it,
word
like
storm is another bit of what I would call theater. You know,
yeah, that's a good word
it,
for it.
it does take on. It does. It adds to the drama of the whole situation.
Yeah, so I mean it's another one of those it's one of those words that'll get you to read the article, right? It's just like they want it's
Yes,
clickbaity kind of thing.
yes.
Um,
Well, but guess what? That's also another sign of how the media, you know, in a way, the way this whole situation is being portrayed. I really don't think the Republicans ran down there and burst the door open and made it. You know, they walked in and they go, "What are you doing?" You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure it
yeah.
was a much calmer situation. But if you read the headlines of it, it does kind of give you that sense of the, you know, here's the 101st Airborne kicking in a door and throwing in a grenade
Right.
kind of a thing.
Yeah,
And
it's
that only, you know, that sort of thing is really, in a sense, a sign of how far the media has fallen because, you know, people were complaining about bias in the media as far back as the 70s. And in the 80s, it was already really apparent. My dad, who learned how to speak English by reading the New York Times, would stop reading the Times for months on end because he was so offended by what he was reading because he could see the bias. And you're talking about a guy who used to read Pravda and Izvestia, so he knows propaganda when he sees it. And he was detecting it back then, and it's only gotten worse.
yeah. It's I notice it because I love to read and I got a degree in English and so I was kind of trained on how to read really well in
Yeah.
college and so I noticed the specific words that people use in articles like
Yes.
this, you
No.
know, it's like
The
they
word
stand
choices
out.
are deliberate. Yes, the word choices are always deliberate. You always hear he's a staunch conservative, and then when they talk about a very liberal Democratic person, you know, let's say he's a staunch conservative senator, and when they talk about the liberal who is as far to the left as the Republican is to the right, he's just a senator. You see what I'm saying? So they normalize by doing that. They're normalizing one end of the political spectrum as if and treating that
Well,
as if
yeah.
that's the center.
Well, and then like just the treatment too. Like I was listening to Ben Shapiro, um, and he said like I haven't been following politics that long as he has, but he said there was a time when the Democrats in the House, when they were in the minority, they slept there overnight for some reason to stage like a protest,
Yes,
and
yes,
so they that was heralded as like a protest or you know this great and glorious thing. But the Republicans do
right.
something like this, and it's like, oh my God, the republic is going to
Yeah,
fall.
no, no.
The world is coming
If the
to an end.
Democrats do a thing, it's great and glorious. If the Republicans do the exact same thing 5 years later, it's oh my God, this is a front against decorum or some crap. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Well,
Who are you kidding? Oh, yourself.
there's a book I need to read. It's called Administration and Government or something like that.
Okay.
It's basically like the one of the I guess ideological foundations of the progressive movement. If you I don't know if you know what Hillsdale College is. Have you heard of
Yeah,
them?
I do.
Okay.
I most definitely do.
They have a uh, online classes that you can just take for free, and so I've been
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the shit out of those. But they have one on
Yes.
why Congress isn't like why Congress is broken and how it's kind of strayed away from the founders' original
Oh, send me the
idea.
link for that. I mean, I'm I'm
Yeah, I
I'm
can send it to
interested
you.
in that. 'Cause I know it's broken. I just would like to see what Hillsdale's take on it because those are some smart people. Oh, you know what would also would be a good thing to talk about today? The fact that yesterday Durham's investigation to collusion is now listed as a criminal investigation.
Ooh, yeah, we can talk about that. But in the Hillsdale course, they
Mm-hmm.
talked about how, and I'm also listening to their Constitution 101 class as well.
Yep.
Um, but these are things that when I listen to them, I want to sit down and engage with them. I don't just play it in the background as I'm doing dishes or whatever. So they take a
Right.
while for me to get through. But
Uh huh.
they said that like that book, the administrative state or something like that, it's like basically the progressive Bible, I would say. I need to read it,
Uh huh.
but their take on it was essentially that the the way the founders set up the government can't work in a modern era because it's too slow. Things need to be done
Got it.
more quickly. And so,
Oh yes, no, they've been complaining about that since the 19th century. They railed
right,
against the Constitution, and their whole thing since the progressive thrust since its beginning has been, how dare you saddle us with this Constitution, you who are not alive? How they literally want to
they're
have snap judgments and ruling on a whim. That's their stated thing
they're
from the beginning.
rejecting the founding essentially, or
Yes,
some of the ideas
exactly.
in the founding.
Yeah, that is, and then and their hatred of the founding is so profound is that they will ally with anyone in order to make that to undo it. So it's literally been a 130-year. What do you call it? It's not treason because they're not colluding with someone outside, but it's when you're colluding to overthrow the government from within. I think there's a term for that.
Coup.
Um, yeah, well, no, but that's the wrong one. There's something else on it's. Listen, let me go grab more coffee, and I'll be right back. I'm sorry to
Sure,
step away. We don't have someone else to fill in the time here.
that's okay. I can ramble on about a bunch of stuff. So the main idea in that lecture series, or not the main idea, but one of them in that lecture series was that there are three things that essentially a good administrator needed to be, someone that would run the government, is that they needed to be free from elections, essentially, is one of them. Another one is, I forget what the second one is, but the third one, which is the one that stuck out to me the most, but they're all three pretty like crazy in my opinion. They're pretty disturbing. But the third one is that they have to be a progressive, essentially. And so I think I see a lot like it's one of those things where you hear it and if you just heard it on its own, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I believe that or not. And then later, the more you look into it and the more you observe the things around you, you're like, click. Like it just all clicks into place. And so it just kind of makes sense. So anybody listening, sorry for